Welcome to the Chinksey Sports Presents the Premier League show. Haven't said that in a minute, but we are back once again. And without any further ado, we go straight into the first game of the last game week, which was game week 20. And that was at Kenilworth Road in a game between Luton Town and Chelsea. Ended 3-2 to the away side when Chelsea raced into a 3-goal lead after 70 minutes by blowing the Hatters away in the opening half through goals from Cole Palmer and Noni Madueke. I thought the score could really get out of hand. The Chelsea duo have great temperament and have a future awaiting them. Terrible language there. In the summer, alongside Newcastle's Anthony Gordon and Arsenal's Emile Smith-Rowe, they starred for the England under-21s in their victorious European campaign. Chelsea's future in attacking areas appears to be in good hands. Madueke looks like he's finding form, having struggled to oust Ukrainian winger Mikhailo Mudryk from the first 11. Chelsea's fierce competition, especially in the wide areas, is compounded by Mudryk's determination to ensure that he doesn't go down as a flop, and Raheem Sterling's mission to force his way back into the England squad. Luton Town kept Chelsea honest with two late consolation goals, one from former Chelsea midfielder Ross Barkley and the other from Elijah Adebayo, who bagged his 5th Premier League strike of the season. So the game ended 3-2. Obviously, Chelsea raced into a 3-goal lead before Luton grabbed two consolations to make it squeaky bum time for the Blues, but they held out and got a crucial 3 points in their quest for a European spot for next season. Following game was the 3 o'clock fixture at the Etihad Stadium between last season's champions, treble winners, Manchester City, and last season's second placed championship side, Sheffield United. The game ended 2-0. 2 goals from Rodri and Julian Alvarez in spite of Kevin De Bruyne's and Erling Haaland's continued absence saw City go up to 3rd in the league with a game in hand as they close in on their title-chasing counterparts, Aston Villa, Liverpool, Tottenham and Arsenal. Well, they're only closing in on 2 because they're 3rd. Over the last few years, Spain captain Rodri has made that low drive from the edge of the box his trademark, as when he strikes the ball so cleanly and with such accuracy and aplomb, it is almost impossible to stop. Just ask former Inter Milan goalkeeper Andre Onana, who was the losing goalkeeper against Man City as Rodri's strike won them their first ever Champions League. I tend to speak about Blades keeper Wes Foderingham a lot in these podcasts because his team generally concede a lot of goals despite the numerous saves that he still makes. So he's been made to work, put it that way. I can only assume that privately his manager Chris Wilder would have taken a 2-0 defeat prior to the game commencing, as a heavy defeat would only dampen morale in a game that even the most ardent a Blades fan would not have expected anything from. So, I mean, just to clarify, Nottingham Forest, Sheffield United would definitely have taken only a 2-0 defeat prior to the game. Man City probably just thinking they want to rack up the points going into the next game, so they're going to try build momentum going forward. Right. Crystal Palace v Brentford was the next 3 o'clock kickoff. That ended 3-1 to Palace, who have been on a horrific run of form of recent. So obviously they finally ended their poor run of form in emphatic style with a resounding 3-1 victory over Thomas Frank's struggling Brentford side. Michael Olise and Abere Eze tore through the Bees' defence at ease as Palace recorded their first win for, wait for it, for 3 months Even more impressive was the character they showed to come back and win despite trailing just 90 seconds into the match. 2 goals from Frenchman Elise and a solitary effort from Eze were enough to take Palace up to 14th and give them a 6-point buffer from the drop zone. So Palace finally get back to winning ways as Brentford drop closer to the drop zone, and they are really in the rut right now. Right, another 3 o'clock kickoff was Aston Villa against Burnley. That ended 3-2 to the Villains. Had Villa not won this game against 10-man Burnley, questions would have been asked about the character and staying power of Unai Emery's side, especially after disappointing results against Sheffield United and Manchester United in their last 2 league matches. It looked like business as usual when Jamaica winger Leon Bailey slammed the ball into the back of the net after great play from Ollie Watkins, but the phrase you're at your most vulnerable after conceding rang true as Zeki Amdouni equalised a mere 2 minutes later for the away side. When Frenchman Moussa Diaby put Villa 2-1 ahead just before half-time, I assumed that they'd push on and kill the game off, especially after Norway's Sander Berge saw red after 2 bookable offences in the 56th minute. Burnley striker Lau Foster had other ideas though, as he made Villa pay for their profligacy. A simple long ball flick-on combination contrived to fall into the South African's path, and he simply smashed it into the back of the net to level the game for Burnley against the run of play. For Villa to win, it took an 89th minute contentious penalty from Douglas Luiz after substitute Jean Duran appeared to manufacture a foul out of nothing. So Villa could have dropped points in that game, and if they did, I'm sure a lot of people would have been doubting their ability to stay in this title race. But they hung in there, ground out the result, and they remain in 2nd place, just behind table toppers Liverpool. So yeah, they're well in with it, within a chance of winning this title, but I doubt they'll stay for long. Bloody hell. Wolves against Everton ended 3-0. Losing me voice, mate. Wolves' impressive South Korea forward Hwang bagged himself another assist to prove that he's not just a goal scorer in what was his last league game for Wolves before jetting off to Qatar for the Asia Cup. Max Kilman, Craig Dawson and Matthias Cunha all got on a score sheet to condemn Everton to their 3rd successive league defeat. The Toffees incidentally have not won any of their last 5 games in all competitions, whereas Wolves are poised in mid-table, only 6 points from 6th placed West Ham. If Gary O'Neill can steer them into the top 10, then I'm sure he'll be a strong candidate for manager of the season, for sure. Wolves doing really well this season after a tough start, and despite a tough start where decisions have gone against them, they've really pulled it together in recent months and are not far off the European spots. But for the way I see it is, if Wolves can secure themselves an 8th or 9th position finish, that would be a remarkable season for them, and I'm sure their manager would be within the top 2 or 3 candidates for the manager's season, alongside whoever wins the league, probably a Jurgen Klopp or a Guardiola or Arteta. But now Wolves have been one of the most impressive sides so far this season, but whether they can continue that is another question. Okay, the 5:30 kickoff at the City Ground between Nottingham Forest and Manchester United ended 2-1 to Forest. This was an entertaining game to watch. Forest edged it after two identical cutbacks from the edge of the box were followed up with emphatic strikes from the edge of the area by midfielders Nicolas Dominguez from Argentina and England's Morgan Gibbs-White. Former Arsenal keeper Matt Turner had an eventful game, firstly gifting Manchester United their first goal before his pivotal save was the catalyst for the counter-attack in which Forest got their winner. Former Manchester United winger Anthony Elanga, who has been their standout performer this season, was visibly emotional at full-time as he embraced his manager Nuno Espirito Santo. So he clearly had a chip on his shoulder and wanted to prove to his former employers that it was a mistake to get rid of him, and that obviously when he was there in previous seasons, they didn't give him enough game time. But he's shown to me this season that he is a Premier League player, but he just needs to continue what he's doing and prove to the rest of the league that not only he's a Premier League player, but can he play for a top 10 side? Because Nottingham Forest aren't exactly the best side in the league. They're probably going to stay up this season if they continue getting results like this. But they need players like Elanga, Hudson-Odoi, Taiwo Awoniyi when he comes back, scoring goals. And also Morgan Gibbs-White and Dominguez are very good midfielders. But they're going to need them all on top form if they want to keep climbing the table. Right. Sunday's fixture was on New Year's Eve, and it was at Craven Cottage. We had two games on New Year's Eve, which was Fulham and Arsenal, followed by, well, at the same time, it was Tottenham and Bournemouth. Fulham beat Arsenal 2-1. When Arsenal went 1-0 up at Craven Cottage after just 5 minutes, it looked like the result would go as predicted and ultimately be a procession. However, I could not have been more wrong. Fulham, despite their abysmal form and record against Arsenal, dominated throughout and showed great resolve and character to keep playing and creating chances. You could tell that they smelt blood and saw cracks as they exploited Arsenal's vulnerability and erratic form. Fulham's persistence, however, eventually paid off after Raul Jimenez and Bobby Decordova-Reid, whose winner just before the hour mark, sealed the points for Fulham. Arsenal toiled throughout and struggled to create chances, which should be a worry for Mikel Arteta going forward. With the likes of Bukayo Saka, Gabriel Jesus, Martin Odegaard and Gabriel Martinelli off the boil and threatening to derail Arsenal's hopes this season. Surely if the Gunners continue in this manner, they'll not only find themselves out of the title race, but facing an uphill battle to stay in the top four, with Tottenham just a point behind them in 5th. And speaking of Tottenham, they managed to beat informed Bournemouth 3-1. This match promised to be an end-to-end pulsating match, and it was. It did not disappoint. Bournemouth should count themselves unfortunate to have lost this by 2 goals because they gave as good as they got, and on another day would have picked up at least a point. When Spurs went 1-0 up through Pape Matar Sarr after just 10 minutes, Bournemouth kept knocking on the door, but with no answer. This game remained in the balance right up until late in the second half when Heung-min Son and Richarlison, that rhymes, made it 3-0 to the home side before Bournemouth's 20-year-old Guernsey-born wonder kid Alex Scott netted a late consolation for the Cherries. If he continues his recent rich vein of form, not only will he consolidate his position in a starting 11, he'll also become the first Alex Scott you'll see when you Google said name. Okay, in the penultimate game of the last game week, which was last Monday, New Year's Day, between Liverpool and Newcastle, ended 4-2 to the Reds. How this game ended up 4-2, only God knows. It was more of a 6 or a 7-1 than a 4-2 game. Listen to this. Liverpool had almost 20 shots on target in stark comparison to Newcastle's 3, and they only won by 2 goals. Madness. Only football can do this. In the first half, Liverpool missed a hatful of chances, including a penalty, as both teams went into the break at 0-0. However, early second half strikes from Mo Salah and Alexander Isak opened the floodgates for what was to come, when second half substitutes Diogo Jota and Cody Gakpo both scored within 15 minutes of coming on as a second half sub. It appeared that was game, set and match, but only for Sven Botman, who surprisingly has never been capped by the Netherlands, to make it 3-2, going into the last 10-15 minutes to at least give the Magpies some form of hope. A late dive from Diogo Jota of Portugal after he rounded the Newcastle Slovak goalkeeper Martin Dubravka was bizarre, because instead of just tapping the ball into an unguarded empty net, he decided to throw himself to the ground. However, that allowed Mo Salah another opportunity to score from the spot, one which he did not pass up this time. Second time lucky, I guess. Something tells me that Salah owes Jota a pint. Liverpool are obviously a team Newcastle struggle against, because they've capitulated against them. Even when Liverpool had 10 men earlier on in the season, they've also lost the last 6 straight games to them in the league and have not beaten them once in 9 years. That's right, not one single time. Right, the last game of game week 20 was West Ham United against Brighton Hove Albion. That ended in a stalemate, 0-0 non-score draw. Another inspired performance from France stopper Alphonse Areola ensured that West Ham picked up their 4th consecutive Premier League clean sheet, which is no mean feat considering that those games were against Brighton, Arsenal, Manchester United and Wolves, and they won 3 of those 4 games, drawing the one against Brighton. Brighton, as you'd expect, dominated possession, chances created and expected goal stats, yet could have still lost this game but for some outstanding saves from their own goalkeeper, Jason Steele. West Ham went into the new year in an impressive 6th place, just 6 points off Arsenal in 4th, but only 6 points away from 11th place Wolves. So they're kind of in a where do we go from here kind of position. Not far away from the top 4, however, they're not far away from dropping out the top 10. So I'm sure they'll level out in the next 2 months or so. I expect West Ham to probably end up about 8th or 9th. I've said all along the season I don't think West Ham are quite as good as the top 6 or 7, but they're doing well to stay in and amongst it at the top. Anyway, straight into this week's predictions. We only have 5 games this week, just as we will have 5 games next week because of the winter break. Arsenal and teams like that are on their winter break this week. So straight into the first game of this game week 21, which is the one currently kicked off at Turf Moor between Burnley and Luton Town. Friday night football sees us kick off the game week with a huge relegation 6-pointer at Turf Moor. This match provides Burnley with a unique opportunity to reel Luton, the side immediately above them, closer to them. Burnley have lost 3 of their last 4 league games, and the worrying thing is that they tend to not even score when they lose. And they are not even picking up draws, registering just 2 all season. Luton, on the other hand, a win over Burnley, who beat them earlier on in the season, would see them climb out of the dreaded drop zone, especially as Everton don't play until Sunday afternoon. And a tough game at that, hosting high-flying Aston Villa. In addition, they still have to play their yet-to-be-rearranged fixture against Bournemouth, as the match was abandoned due to Tom Lockyer collapsing. I think games involving Luton have been generally exciting end-to-end matches, and I don't expect this to be any different. So I'm going for a 2-2 score draw. And I bear in mind I've got no idea what the score is currently. So I'm sticking with my 2-2. We'll see how that ends up. The next game is the early kickoff on Saturday, 12:30 kickoff between Chelsea and Fulham. West London derby is a great way to kick off Saturday's fixtures, despite there only being two. Both these clubs come off the back of disappointing Carabao Cup semi-final first leg defeats to Middlesbrough and Liverpool respectively. Chelsea have generally played well in the last month or so, and they've won 3 of the last 4 Premier League fixtures. They also haven't lost at Stamford Bridge since October, which was 2-0 to Brentford, and if I'm not wrong, they've only lost twice there in the league all season. The second was to Aston Villa. Fulham, conversely, don't travel well, and their recent victory against Arsenal on New Year's Eve skews their what is otherwise poor recent run of results in the league. My theory is if Chelsea play anything like they have been of recent, with the exception of Tuesday, they will win this one. 2-0 to Chelsea for me. And obviously, the second of 2 games on Saturday is the 5:30 kickoff between Newcastle United and Manchester City. Newcastle finally stopped the rot after a resounding 3-0 victory away to arch rivals Sunderland at the Stadium of Light in the FA Cup, which brought an end to a horrendous run of form. It was a game where Eddie Howe could easily have lost his job had they lost that one. Unfortunately for them, they come up against a City side who beat them 1-0 at the Etihad in August and look like they're back in their stride after their World Club Championship win. With Erling Haaland, Jeremy Doku and Kevin De Bruyne back fit and raring to go, City will be looking to avenge Newcastle after they were knocked out by the Magpies in the Carabao Cup third round at St James's Park. The likes of Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, Julian Alvarez and Bernardo Silva are all on top form right now, and will be itching to put an ailing Newcastle side to the sword. I'm going 2-0 to City, away win, and yeah. Right. I believe Sunday's got 2 fixtures, the first of which is at Goodison Park between Everton and Aston Villa. I think this one is a tough one to call, although I'm sure a lot of people will be going for Villa to win this. And not surprisingly, because Aston Villa have won 7 and drawn 2 of the last 9 Premier League fixtures between these two sides, meaning they're unbeaten in 9 against Everton. I just feel that Sean Dyche will make Villa work really hard to get anything out of this match. He also knows that if his side do not pick up maximum points, they could end the weekend inside the bottom 3. I don't see Everton winning this one, but my prediction is that they'll stifle Villa successfully, who don't tend to travel well and grind out a crucial point. So I've gone for a 1-1 score draw. And finally, it is the game of the weekend for me, which sees a Jekyll and Hyde Manchester United side host Tottenham Hotspur. A Tottenham side buoyed by their 2 new January signings. Former Chelsea forward Timo Werner has joined on loan from RB Leipzig, and 21-year-old Romania centre-half Radu Dragusin, who rejected German giants Bayern Munich to join Spurs. They both provide depth and a much-needed fresh impetus for the Lily Whites, who have won 5 of their last 6 matches in all competitions. Manchester United, on the contrary, will go into this game probably as ever so slight favourites because of home advantage. One alarming stat, though, is that in United's last 4 matches in all competitions, starting from the most recent, they've won, lost, won, lost. From the top of my head, the last game was on Monday against Wigan. The one before that was the league game against Nottingham Forest. The one before that was the win against Aston Villa. And if I'm not wrong, the one before that was the away defeat to West Ham United at the London Stadium. Also, incidentally, they've conceded at least 2 goals each on each of those 4 occasions, even when they've won. So on that basis, they're due a defeat in this one. Actually, they didn't concede 2 goals against Wigan. But anyway, on that basis, they're due a defeat in this one, and it wouldn't be a surprise to me if it were to happen. I expect Spurs to score at least twice in this one, but whether or not that will be enough to win this game, I'm not so sure. So it's a game that can clearly go either way, but for me, I think United will just edge it 3-2. Those are my predictions for episode 21, and I will be back next week. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and be part of this ever so expanding family. We are closing in on that 10K mark, and we will reach it very soon. I'm sure of that. Peace out and see you next week.